What makes most women start a business? Is it passion, money, or freedom? Welcome to the Female Founders, the podcast that takes you behind the scene with women who are founders and CEOs to help you start and scale a successful business of your own. I am your host, Nagilia de Ravin. Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Female Founders. My guest today is Dr. Alexandra Elinsky, founder and CEO of Empower Human Potential. She is also a best-selling author, keynote speaker, and award-winning leadership coach with clients in over 20 countries. Dr. Elinsky loves helping people grow and succeed. Hi, Alexandra. Thank you so much for giving me that chance to have this conversation with you. I'm looking forward to learning more about Empower Human Potential and also what inspired you to start the company and what impact do you hope to make through your work?
Yeah, good question. Thank you for asking. So I founded the company 10 years ago in 2015. Ooh. It's an organizational training and coaching company where I do serve both businesses and consumers. So I get to do two types of sales, which is really fun because it gives the opportunity for different services and products and service lines and things like that. So it's been really interesting to grow the company in both aspects. But I started the company because my niche, my strongest skill set is in coaching and training. And I wanted to start my own business. So I thought, you know what, let's give this a try and see what happens. And here we go, 10 years later.
You're still doing it. But when you say that coaching is your strength, what do you mean by that? How did you know that was your thing? That's the thing that you want to do.
Yeah, I've always been, ever since before college, I've always wanted to be in a profession where I could directly impact, help, and work with other people, predominantly in a one-on-one setting. I've always been in front of a classroom. I've always been a public speaker. And when I got my coaching training and my coaching certifications, it kind of just solidified and verified that, yes, this is the niche for me. This is the right fit for me. So you asked about impact. So I have coached and still coach people from all around the world. So I'm an international coach. So I've worked with people from different backgrounds, different paths, careers, cultures. Like there's so much diversity in the work that I do. I've actually worked with teenagers and adults, even though I mostly work with adults right now, professional adults, usually at a director level or higher. So most of my audience is a very executive audience, but I work with people, if they have a need and if they have a willingness to work with me, then there's nothing that I can't help them with. So in terms of impact, it really does have a global reach, which is nice. And I think with just the tools of social media and, teleconference software and being able to coach and train online and not always have to travel and always have to be in person, it's really been very advantageous for this type of business. So that's kind of where we are today. And then there's just going to be a lot of future growth that I'm working on. So it's all just to kind of see it all unfold like a journey. I have a long-term vision, but just taking it one step at a time and really building it for that long-term strategy.
And you've been doing it for 10 years. I can't imagine you're going to walk away from this right now because it's been a long journey for you.
Yes. Yeah, it has been. And I can't wait, for the next 10 years and to see where it goes, especially with the advancement of technology and all the tools that are accessible to us.
Absolutely. And I look forward for the 50 years when all our hair are completely gray.
Yes, I know with my age, I've got a long life ahead of me. And that thought really energizes me because it's like, you know what, I've this far in my life right now, but I've got so many decades ahead. What else can I do, right? What's next? So that's very exciting.
But something you said earlier, you said you also work with teenagers. So in what type of coaching do you provide to teenagers?
So the work that I've done with teenagers is very few and far between. They're not my target demographic. But what happens is that sometimes I'm working with the parent and they really like my style and they really value the work that I do and how I've helped them transform. And so they're like, hey, I've got a son or daughter who's 15, 16, 17 years old. They're getting ready for college. They're struggling with X, Y, and Z? Can you provide, some career coaching or mindset coaching for them? And, occasionally when the opportunity presents itself, I'll be able to work with, teenagers as well. But again, that's not my focus. But I would say there's definitely a need for the teenage population. And we know that teenagers don't like listening to their parents. But when they have this outside or third party mentor or coach come in like myself, who can really kind of assess, their situation unbiasedly, right, and be able to help them navigate the waters of college, career options and choices, possibly graduate school, what are the big question, what do you want to do with your life? What's your purpose, right? Sometimes it's nice to have someone like myself come in and be able to kind of help them mold that story and that pathway so that by the time they get to college and beyond, they're focused, they're energized, and they have a clear path forward. Because, for most adults, it's like we're just figuring it out as we go and taking it one step at a time. Yes. But this really kind of gives them more of a roadmap for strategic growth in the direction that they choose for themselves.
Do you think that's a market eventually you will want to get into at one point?
Fantastic question. Absolutely. I think there's a lot of potential there. I think a lot of parents do need help and would want the help and support if the opportunity presented itself. I don't feel like I have the time or bandwidth right now to grow my business and focus on a teenage audience, but I love the idea a lot. And I think there's so much potential there in the near future to be able to expand my service lines and offer something for like a pre-college or high school audience. I think there's a lot of potential there for that.
So like you said earlier, you help professionals across many countries. So what do you think is the biggest challenge people face when trying to reach their full potential?
Another great question. So, and I have noticed something pretty much across the board, across the world, across our borders, with men and women equally. There's no difference in gender or age. So people of all ages. But one trend I've always noticed as a coach, from a coaching perspective, is just a sense of a lack of confidence and self-belief. But I will say that there's always a degree to it, right? Like some people, like there's always a spectrum of confidence, but I have noticed that in almost every client I've worked with, to a greater or lesser degree, that lack of confidence or that lack of belief. And in other words of saying that is like everyone is their own worst enemy, right? And they all have those internal struggles and hurdles that they need to break through to be able to get to the other side and reach their goals and reach their full potential.
And how do you take the step to help them get there? Because I know some people can be very stubborn, don't get me wrong. And some people might be easy to work with, others might be a little bit difficult. So how does that process work for you?
Yeah, you always have to meet someone where they're at, first and foremost, and get on their level, whatever level they're on. And I usually do that. So say I'm taking on a new client or talking to someone for the first time. One thing about me, and this is hopefully true of every coach, because this is what they teach us in coaching, but we're supposed to do more listening than talking, because that's how you build rapport, right? You focus your energies on that other person and you ask meaningful and thought-provoking questions to evoke thoughts inside of them and rationale, and get out some of those discoveries, those inner discoveries. And then so after kind of that initial discovery call that I might have, I create a roadmap for them based on their goals and objectives and outcomes and what they hope to get from my program. Now, coaching's interesting because length of engagement is something we want to take into consideration. Sometimes coaching engagements can be very short, maybe a month or two, couple weeks even. Sometimes they can be more middle of the road. That might be more 3 to 6 to 9 months. And then other coaching engagements are a year or longer. Those would be long-term engagements. So you're taking someone on like a short or long-term journey, depending on their level of commitment and how much work they need. And you have to customize all that according to their specific goals, objectives, and outcomes, and make sure, because a lot of this is, I would say, subjective. Some of it can be objective, to make sure that they're hitting their milestones and seeing progress. Like my clients, for instance, see progress after every single call because the work that I do is high impact and it's fast results. So we're always making sure that we're getting that progress. And that happens with regular check-ins, asking for feedback at the end of every session, giving them surveys to complete at certain intervals, to make sure that we stay on track and they get maximum value out of the engagement, right?
Right. Do you ever have a clients that need to stay with you longer because they need more time to reach the goal they want to reach?
Yeah, absolutely. So all of my programs do offer renewals, and I have a significantly high percentage, maybe 70 or 80%, it's pretty high, of clients who do renew with me for longer engagement. Because actually what I prefer, and I prefer this more for them than they prefer it for themselves, but I prefer that they start with a short-term engagement, maybe something like a month or two, for a couple reasons. Number one, it's low financial risk for them. And number two, it gives us more time to build rapport, make sure that there's a fit, because with coaching, it's all about rapport and fit. I'm not everybody's cup of tea, but I'm very effective for those that I do help. So, making sure that it's a good match, that they're getting value, that, they didn't have to fork over, $10,000 or $20,000 up front for this 6+ to 12-month engagement. And then if they see, very quickly that they're getting value, 9 times or 9.9 times out of 10, they're like, yes, give me more. Let's renew for another 3 to 6 months. And you keep that relationship going.
So each one of your clients, for example, let's say if you had a client that was an executive, they probably would have a different focus, something they're looking for, right? Compared to someone that's looking for a job that will have something different. Is that what it is? Or do you focus on one thing that's the only thing you provide to your client?
Great question. I'm trained and credentialed in many different areas. So there's not necessarily one specific type of coaching that I provide. So what you're talking about is like career coaching, right? Those are the people that are looking for a new job or they're in a career transition. They need help navigating those waters. I certainly do that type of work. I also work with the executives one-on-one for their development and training goals. And those particular engagements do tend to be longer because that development is ongoing and it's a lot of like upskilling and just having that support and the structure that they need to be the most effective leader that they can be.
Yeah. And I would believe also that takes a lot of time too, because I know some people said some people are born leaders. I don't know about that. I felt like if we really want skills, we will go for that skills. We'll find the help we need to build that skills to be the best we can be at it. And that's how I really see it. But yeah, I will think being going with the organization, becoming a leader and want to keep on going, I think that will take time to kind of go yourself in general.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because like in a perfect world, every executive would have a coach all the time for like the tenure of their career. It wouldn't be something that would even stop after a year or two.
No.
Because growth is continual and learning never stops, right? There's always new opportunities. There's always new value. There's always new insights and new discoveries.
Yes.
And so that is a different level of support. And I'm thankful that I am skilled and versed in these different areas so that my services are a bit more comprehensive and dynamic, and I can serve a wider variety of people, right?
But now, what motivated you to write your book? It's like your book's names are just so like different. I'm like, okay, I need to read this. This is I'm saying the first one is Girl Great, Savage, Not Average.
Yes.
And you have the second one that's Girl Game, Balls Out. I'm like, yes. What? So what motivated you to write them?
Yeah, fantastic question. Well, so this is, okay, so let me start at the beginning. So I've always wanted to write a book for like the last 10 years. And it was always, I'm going to write a book someday. I'm going to write a book someday, right? Never around to it. And but the good news is I had like 5 different ideas or topics in my head of different things I could write about, different directions I can go in. But it was never an aha moment, right? The light bulb never really quite went off, and I never felt that divine inspiration to start putting pen to paper. Well, in 2022, August of 2022, I was on vacation in Florida, visiting some friends and family. And it was kind of a week of like Zen, right? It was just my me time. I was away from life and family, and I just had time to think and get clarity and get away. And I was in the pool swimming, and the idea for Girl Grit it just hit me like, whoa, this is it. The light bulb went off. So I knew I was going to call it Girl Grit. I knew it was going to be a part of a series, and I'll get to that in a minute and talk about, the series. But I came home, and right away, I started writing the book, and I wrote it so fast. I wrote a 261-page book in 5 months.
No way.
Yeah. I was so overwhelmingly inspired. I never got writer's block. I never had issues with it. And it's filled with research. Like I cite other authors and other experts. So it's not just like Alex's opinion, right? It's like Alex's opinion rooted and grounded in all of these other things to build the case and the defense that I'm making. So yes, when I finished Girl Grit early, the following year in 2023, I'm like, all right, I wrote this book, what am I going to do with it? Is anyone even going to want to read it? There's all these questions but it didn't stop me from writing it. Writing it is the biggest and most important part. So from that point, I started to pursue, literary agents and things like that. But the problem with literary agents is all they care about is your social media following, right?
Yes.
It's all a popularity contest. So if you're a nobody or first time author, you might as well just, you might as well forget about it. But the good news is that you, as an author, you can submit direct to publisher. So many publishers will not take unagented submissions, but there are many who will, right? So you have to focus on those. So I probably sent my manuscript to 50 publishers. I mean, it was very aggressive. I spent about a month or two, and I had like 50 submissions, plus I followed up with all of them. And when everything was said and done, like maybe 4 months later, because it does take them a while to review and get back to you, I ended up with 5 publishing offers. And I ended up going with the publisher who I felt like was the best fit for my book, that could get it out in the world and market it and put it out there on the platforms. And they did. That actually happened. The book got released November of 2024, last year. And it's even won 3 literary awards so far. So we're getting some traction and word of mouth and just, sharing the knowledge. But I think what's cool about this particular book is that, yes, it is part of a series. So the series was originally a trilogy. So the third book, the second and third book are in production right now. So they're going to be released this summer, pretty close to each other. But I decided to actually keep the series going and do like a 4th book and a 5th book, which I'm writing the 4th book right now, because the whole entire series is pretty much about building a confident, self-assured, badass, bullshit-free woman. Like that's the whole overarching theme. But in 5 books, I've really been able to get quite granular and break that up into multiple subtopics where it's kind of like more like a series about life. So I kind of almost think of it like as a blueprint, right? If I was a teenage girl or a girl in my, early to mid to late 20s, and I used to be that girl, right? I'm in my 30s now. But the book serves as like a blueprint to teach you about life, to teach you about resiliency and emotional mastery and pain and suffering and heartbreak and career and goals and achievement and all these, and being a mother and all, family, all these different things that all of us can resonate with to a greater or lesser degree. It's supposed to touch a wide enough audience where people could see elements of themselves in different situations and circumstances. So, for example, Girl Grit does cover a lot of topics, doesn't get real far into each one, but the overall theme of Girl Grit is resiliency and being able to rise above, the circumstances. Now, book 2, Girl Game Balls Out, that one goes more into like relationships, human emotion, attachment theory. So book 2 is more of a psychological deep dive into emotion, attachment theory, and healing, the healing journey. Book 3 is about spirituality and power and how those go hand in hand. And book 4 is going to be on goals, entrepreneurship, and business, and starting and building a business. Book 5, I don't know the topic yet. I still have to think about that. But you can see how these topics are very applicable and touch all of us. So I felt like the book was, even though it's another, it's another self-help book, just like there's already millions of self-help books on the market, it is unique in the specific value and the mission that it brings to the table. And I've gotten some feedback on the book already, how whether, a young woman is reading it, a middle-aged woman or an older woman, they all say that they can resonate with the messages, even though they might be at different ages and stages of their life.
And I think we like for starting with the first book, we all went through that young age, We didn't just born, we all didn't born being 30, 40, 50 years old. We were born with 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's pretty much how we started. And I think we all can resonate from that part itself. And then we get older, we graduate high school, and then we need to find our first job because now we can't relate on our parents anymore. We're on our own. All of these things. Then we go to college, and then we met that guy that's probably like gonna drive us crazy. Who knows? So all of these things, they happen to pretty much all of us. Like we might not take the exact same path, but it happened somehow, somewhere at one point of time.
Yes. And that's the idea, is that it's a shared experience. Although those circumstances and situations vary, but we can see ourselves in that trajectory of our life, that roadmap of our life, hitting these different milestones, like, your first marriage, having your first baby, maybe becoming a single mother, maybe going through a divorce, or healing, from your childhood, or rising above your circumstances, because most of us, we don't come from wealthy families. We don't come from privilege or opportunities. Nobody was holding our hand or putting a spoon in our mouth, a silver spoon in our mouth. Many of us have, like the book suggests, girl grit. We have to have that grit. We have to have that level of tenacity and stick-to-itness to be able to get on a path of prosperity and abundance versus going the route of like alcoholism, drug addiction, and pretty much, throwing our lives away, or ending up in therapy for 50 years without ever really healing,
And I think books like that sometimes so they're just wake up calls. I looked at it.
Absolutely.
So I don't know about you, but sometimes I'll just go to a bookstore or a library and I just see a book and I'm like, interesting. Let me read that. And then you start reading that book and you're like, whoa. That's all. I'm going through it. Yes. How do I fix it? You want to keep going more into the book, and they save your lives, and as not everyone can afford to pay for a coach, and when they can get a book and they can grab it from you, they probably watch you. They know what you do, but they were okay. I cannot afford her, but I can afford a book.
It's so funny you say that, because that was my exact rationale for writing the book. It's that low ticket offer that, they may not be able to afford the coaching, but I wanted to make the coaching affordable for everybody and have a wider reach, because even if you make minimum wage, right, you can still likely afford an $18 book.
Absolutely.
And you can still get almost just as much value as you would in a $10,000, I'm just throwing a random number out there, coaching journey for 6 months or 12 months or whatever it is, because you're paying for that person's time. So the book has significant value, and it's probably worth a heck of a lot more than $18. But you're absolutely right. It's accessible to people who need it, and they can start there and they can build themselves up from there. And then as they grow in their career and they begin to make more money, then down the road you can hire, the high ticket coach.
Yes, you can get more help, but at least it get you started from somewhere to get somewhere.
I agree. Yeah, 100%. Because like I said in the original question you asked, I said the book is a mission. It's not just another self-help book. It's not. No. I started writing this book, I didn't have any intentions on even making money off of it. I wrote the book because I was sick of the BS in life and I wanted to help people. That was my why. And I figured the rest would take care of itself, And
it is. Right now you're about to have the third one coming out. So you have 2 more coming out. And then you're going to have the fourth one. And you pretty much already write the fourth one. So starting with, I think it is. And also, when you put your heart into something, and I think people see it. I was reading a book not too long ago. The author no longer alive. The author actually passed away 20 years ago. But that book's still ongoing. Yeah. And one thing, when I was reading the book, I wanted to cry. And I'm like, I wish I could ask the author all the questions I have. But it was the funniest thing is the fact that I wanted to ask the questions. That's how I went online and Googled the author. And I learned the author passed away. And I'm like, oh, man. But still, the info that was given, and I got to learn book 1, there was book 2. And I'm like, oh, okay, then. He continued the work, right? So now I can go back to book 2 so I can understand what he was trying to explain that he didn't cover in full in book 1. And I feel like your book is the same stage, right? Because in book 1, you didn't go into detail on everything, but you continue it so people can actually get the things they need from each book to another. Yes. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that people need it because not everyone can afford a coach. And when you can get the information, and as women, as girls, we can learn it from another woman that's been there, it's bring a lot more value.
100%. And I agree with you. I feel like because I'm a huge reader myself, and I feel like every author I've read to some degree has been a parent of mine who has taught me something valuable. And I had the same thing happen to me where I read a book that inspired me so deeply. And when I learned that the author had died 20 years ago, I just started crying because I'm like, wow, this author's been gone 20 years and their words are still impacting me and changing my life. And it's like, in 50, 60 years from now, when I'm gone, there's going to be some, 20 something year old girl reading my book and it's going to totally change her life. And she's going to think, wow, she wrote this book, 60 years ago and it's still applicable today,
Exactly. But you don't realize one thing you don't realize, a lot of people done a lot of great work. No one ever knew they even existed until after they pass on. It's so just like that. The work become the biggest thing. It's like, well, the person no longer alive. I don't get it. But it's because for some reason it wasn't at the time that they wrote it. It wasn't the perfect timing. Right. But for whatever reason, they felt like they needed to write that to leave it behind. And then 10, 15 years later, it's the perfect timing. That's when people actually need that.
Yes.
And that's when they go for it.
I agree. Yeah. Yeah. And I've heard other people say that words and books live on, they never die. They have a perpetual shelf life. And I read a lot of books from, the 30s and 40s and 50s and 60s. And you would honestly think they were written today because like I said, words live on, advice, how to live, how to do better, how to be better, how to better yourself. It lives on. And sometimes, in our childhood, we grow up with one perspective. We grew up with the perspective of our parents because they taught us. Well, we don't come to realize until we're adults that there's millions of other perspectives out there. There's millions of ways to live. There's millions of beliefs and philosophical values and beliefs. And it's like when we read those works of others, we realize how much thought is out there and we're able to change our perspective and have these belief systems and philosophies and values that are more fruitful and more in alignment with us that may not necessarily be what we grew up with in our childhood.
And that's the reason why you need to keep writing. But as a leadership coach, what qualities do you believe make a great leader? And how can women actually, what word should I use? Take that type of skills and make it work for themselves to grow their careers?
I would say that the biggest trait or characteristic of a good, effective leader is, there's several, but I would say vulnerability, the ability to show people that, hey, I'm a real human being, I'm humble. I'm here to help. I have that servant leader mentality where I'm willing to roll up my sleeves with you. But I think coupled with that is the empathy, or what I like to call the human side of leadership, where you're very aware and cognizant of other people and you're able to get on their level and inspire them and give them feedback and but also like always demonstrating what they're doing correct and always praising them and always giving them that validation. So I think, taking vulnerability, marrying it to empathy, plus, resiliency, and just having a strong, unbreakable sense of character mixed with strategy and mixed with vision, you're going to be a very compelling leader. And when you listen to other people, they will listen to you, right? When you hear other people, they will listen to you, because nobody wants to be told what to do, right? Nobody wants to take orders like the bosses of the authoritative leaders of the past. We have this new leadership where we're all humans and we're all equal contributors, and everything, everybody has something meaningful to say, and we all matter, and we're all growing and learning together as a team. So it's more of a collaborative team approach mixed with led with vulnerability and empathy.
But the business world is, how would I say that? I don't even think I want to call it competitive anymore. I feel like it's even more than that now, especially for us as women. So how do you stay confident and push forward despite setbacks or challenges?
Because I think it's because I know who I am, and I'm rooted and grounded in who I am, and I know the value that I bring to the world. And I'm someone I'm super mission focused. I always look forward. I always look up, and I make sure that I take very good care of myself, right? Because I'm not going to be able to help other people or take care of other people if I don't first take care of myself. So I always make sure that I prioritize my needs, but also that I stay the course, so to speak, and I don't get distracted by all these things that would try to hold me back or try to limit me. And you kind of push through the pain. Are there days that I want to cry and give up? Yeah. Are there days that I worry that things aren't happening fast enough for me, or that I'm not where I want to be? Yeah. Absolutely. But I've adapted that belief that that I don't lack anything, and that I already have everything that I want. And that's how I'm able to attract and magnetize those things to me and be able to really live my purpose. I think when people lose sight of the mission, then they can be overtaken by anything, a relationship, stress, their kids, living vicariously through their children, right? And that's the problem with women, is because we're expected to be the caretakers. We never get the time to focus on our own dreams much of the time, right?
No, we don't.
But there is a way, I believe, to be an effective parent while still being able to focus on your dreams too, because you're going to be a role model for that child.
Yes. And I think that society also put a lot into us, right?
They do.
So I think the expectation people look for, when as a mother, and I think one thing I always tell to people when I meet other moms, I'm like, you do the best that you can do as a mom. So don't look at what other parents are doing, because what you have is what you have. And trust me, your kids will learn from it and grow from it and become better than you. And I think that's what we have to look forward to. And the second thing is that we take care of everybody else, grandparents, children, husband, all of them, even the friends sometimes. Hey, can you borrow me $20? You got them all going on. And then at the end of the night, you lay in the bed, you are exhausted, not just your body, but your brain. You are exhausted physically, emotionally, mentally, all of it. And then you probably get about 6 hours of sleep, and you get up and you do it all over again.
Yes.
And I think we need to take care of ourselves too. It's like, when I say to my son sometimes, this is mommy time. So I'm going to watch 1 hour of whatever I want to watch without you be part of it. It's like, okay, mom. And then after the 1 hour, it's like, are you done? But it's okay to do things like that. And I agree with you. It's like we take on too much. We take on too many things. And then our shoulders are super, from the neck to the shoulder, they're heavy. I don't know if you realize that sometimes you might be out and you're like, oh my goodness. It's like everything is just like too much. It's like way too much stress. And and we need help. And that's where it's come. We have to ask for help from people like you, from other people. Just reach out for help. And I think that that's something we need to learn and do. It is what it is.
I agree with you 100%. Those are some great points that you brought up that were, and in the book, I don't know if you read the book yet, but I call it being everybody's everything. That's a big topic in Girl Grit, the sense of having octopus arms and stretching ourselves too thin and feeling like we're carrying the weight of the world on our shoulders because we're just, we're like the pinnacle of everybody's existence. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh, yeah.
Yes, we're running the show. And, but you're right. To your point, yes, we have to ask for help. Like we have to delegate. We have to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves. And I think with social awareness and the access to information, like I think people are becoming more and more aware of that and less guilty, right? Because guilt is an invisible ghost. And just saying that it's okay. It's okay. I don't have to be a super woman or super mom. I'm allowed to be a human being.
That's who you are. We might create it all. We might give life because we are the only one who can do it. No matter how much they try to take it away, you can't really take it away. We were born with it. So it's something we just do, right? We give life. And I think society look up to us in a different ways. And we should be, it's an honor, it's an honor to be looked at that way. Regardless, even regardless how men stand up for themselves, at the end of the day, I seen men that slow themselves so down to the mom to a point like, you're all I got. Yeah. You are my mom. And I watched that happen with 50 years old men. We'll go to their mom like, I'm in trouble, mom. And you're the only one who can help me.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really, when I see women overlooked, I always looked at it, look at yourself as a mom. At the end of the day, your son come to you for help when all does it. Nothing else is working. You are it. Yeah. So, but I have another question for you.
Sure.
What advice would you give to women who want to start their own business, but kind of feel like, is that really where I want to go? And what should I do?
Great question. So I never grew up wanting to be an entrepreneur. I always wanted the safety route that most people take of being employed by someone else. And I became an entrepreneur because my friend told me that I was smart enough to be an entrepreneur. And for whatever reason, that just like made me become an entrepreneur overnight. Like somebody else's belief in me, like gave me that spark.
Yeah.
So I'm going to pass that spark on. But there's a section I have in Girl Grit in chapter, I want to say it's like 17 or 18. It's towards the end of the book where in high school, a guy I dated in high school gave me the advice. There was something that I was afraid to do, but wanted to do. And I just had a lot of limitations and I lacked the confidence and the belief in myself. And his advice was just effing do it. And he told me that over and over and over and over. And it kind of got stuck in my head. So I wrote a whole section of my book about like whatever it is you want to do, whatever you feel called to do, just effing do it. Right. And sometimes it takes such a leap of faith where you're literally like diving into the deep end, not knowing where you're going to land, not knowing all the strategies. I will tell you as an entrepreneur, and I've been in business 10 years, I don't have all the answers. He's like, there are times where there are months where my business is doing well and months where I'm not doing well. And it's like feast or famine. So, I can't say that I'm like the ultimate guru in business because honestly, we're all learning every single day. And there's strategies and methodologies and skills I learn every day to become a better entrepreneur and a better business person. So the advice I would give someone who's kind of on the fence is, ask yourself the big why, like what's the big reason why? Do I really want this? Do I want the freedom, flexibility, and finances that it will eventually afford me? And then just take that leap of faith and trying and I'm not going to say failing because I don't actually believe in failure, but trying and giving up is better than not trying and never knowing. Right. So it's better to try and to give up and realize, oh, this isn't for me. And I need to come up with plan B and go down another route. And that's fine. Entrepreneurship isn't for everyone. But if you don't try, that's where you're going to have regrets.
Yes,
and that's where you're going to get to your grave and say, you know what, I could have done this, I should have done that, I wanted to do that, and I let all these things hold me back. So think of it as diving into the deep end, right? Like, you can swim, but you don't know exactly how you're going to land, and you're going to trust that, when you make that jump, you're going to figure out how to swim real quick,
Yes, and I agree with you too. And when you say failure, you don't really think about it as failure, and you're right about that. It's not a failure. You are learning something you didn't know. Yeah. For me, taking like also as yourself, go to school and take all this degree or diplomas or certificates and all these things that we need. We really learn them at the job. So look at entrepreneurship is the same way. You're not going to know everything about starting a company. You're going to need help. You cannot do everything on your own. And you're going to need to have a lot of patience with yourself. And it's okay to cry when the day comes, because I've done it. Trust me, I cry. So that's the time I remember one time I closed my computer and I look at my son and say, I'm done with my business. I am sick and tired and I am so done. And I just closed the computer and then I went and I lay. And I just lay there. My son come and lay next to me, said, come on, get up. Let's go back to the computer. We need to make money. And he was like, really? That's your inspiration to me right now? But the thing is that you will want to give up. And I go to sleep and I think about it. I love what I do. And there's going to be ups and downs into it. Yeah. It's not always going to be a straight line. And if it's a straight line, it will be super boring.
Yeah. Right.
And why would you want that? Because there's nothing for you to learn. Right. So it's okay. I guess just like Alexandra said, it's going to be a long journey and you're going to have fun with it. You're going to meet some great people and you're going to meet some people you don't want to be around for the rest of your life. And that's fine too. But again, you don't want to take in your last breath and saying, why didn't I give it all? It's better you give it all right now and get it over with.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. There's a quote, fortune favors the brave. And without risk, there's no reward. So if you could focus, and I will say that it all boils down to faith.
Yes.
Like manifestation is all about faith and assuming that you are what you want to be right now and feeling it and believing it. And that's how you manifest it. That's faith, right? Yes. It's making the unseen become seen. So, I hope that I was able to answer your questions today.
Yes, I did. And how can anyone reach out to you?
Yeah, so I'm definitely very visible online. You can easily find me on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook or LinkedIn by just typing my name, Alexandra Elinsky or Dr. Alexandra Elinsky. You can buy Girl Grit, my book, Savage Not Average. It's available on multiple online platforms like Walmart, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, to name a few. My phone number and email is available as well. Should I give them my phone number?
Unless you want a lot of stalkers here. I'm joking.
But available phone, email, very easy to get a hold of. My company's Empower Human Potential. So they can find me and shoot me a message and we can just connect and jump on a call, You
never know. That's how everything started, It takes one person to change your life around. Just
That's
one.
Right. That's right. And the biggest thing to change your life around is yourself, right?
Yes. Yeah. And you have to be willing to make the change, because a lot of people said, I want this, I want that, but they're not willing to do anything to get to where they want to go. So you have to be willing to put the work. She cannot do it for you. You have to do it yourself.
Yes. 100%. Yes.
Well, thank you so much for giving me that chance to talk with you and to learn a little bit more about what you do. And I look forward to having another conversation with you soon again, and also keep doing what you're doing. And I hope that you do add the teenager into your business as you're growing.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much for this wonderful call and interview. I look forward to meeting you soon. Have a blessed and wonderful day. Okay.
Thank you for listening to Female Founders Podcast. That's it for this week's episode. Be sure to follow us on your favorite podcast app or connect with us on womel.com so that you don't miss our next episode. See you next time. Bye for now.